Welcome to the How Did They Get There podcast. Thank you for participating in this and being available for this interview. So let's start off with. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. And first, thank you for having me, Nishant. It's a real pleasure to be here. So my name is Troy Barratt. I'm the managing director and majority shareholder of a company called Barratt Group Holdings, and we own two businesses at the moment: a contract manufacturing company and a company that supplies street furniture and infrastructure products to the UK and around the EU and a little bit into America. And it's something I've been doing now for 8 years, and really enjoy it.
Nice. And do you love what you do?
Yeah, I do. I have I guess I'd say I have the pleasure of getting to do what I want to do. Now, I certainly have challenging days, and interestingly enough, today was a particularly challenging day. But I enjoy the challenge, and I would say I get to do the three things I enjoy most of the time. I get to spend time working with the management team and developing the team around me, speaking with big customers and prospects, and understanding their businesses and how we can work with them or their requirements. And then Barratt Group was set up to invest in really sort of underperforming industrial and commercial businesses or companies that are looking for an exit but a long-term shareholder that's going to look after the business for the next few decades. And I get to spend a fair amount of my time looking at the next investment opportunity for us. And I enjoy doing all three of those things.
That's really interesting, and especially the sector you mentioned. So I just had a quick look up at your company, and I saw the seat designs and stuff that you guys do. That also seemed like a very niche thing that you see these things in public, but you actually don't think about actually who's coming up with these designs. And how much they actually matter to actually build up that ecosystem and the way things represent. To get to this position, you've been doing this for 8 years. How did you get started with this?
Well, it's how I got started in this was, I used to work in finance and in investment banking and then private equity and corporate development. And I always enjoyed being at the businesses, in the factories, in the shipyards. And I spent most of my time with industrial businesses in the roles I had when I was still working in finance. So that helped me learn a lot about the business and what I wanted to do, and helped me kind of think about where, if I get the opportunity to have my own business, what would it be, and what would it look like? And what I do now, I really enjoy it, Nishant, because I get to. I like being involved in businesses where I see the product at the end.
Yeah.
It's something about me. I've worked in businesses where it's service oriented, and there's some fantastic service oriented businesses. In many ways, that's what I did in finance. It was a service business, but I really like seeing the product, and I get a lot of excitement and a buzz out of seeing our products around cities. I've seen them in multiple countries, and seeing not only do I get to see our products in different cities, but on a personal level, it makes me happy to see that our products help people, particularly furnitures, engage with the outdoor environment. So we get to work with manufacturing and bringing great manufacturing and engineering jobs, providing them in the UK, and then seeing our products help get people outdoors. It's really satisfying.
And is that something, when you came out of university, this is something that you thought that you will be doing?
Not in the slightest. So I grew up in Indiana, sort of middle America, the Midwest, about 3 hours south of Chicago. That was the biggest city near where I grew up. And the city I grew up in was about 1 million people, but very spread out. So it wouldn't feel like 1 million person city if you went to visit it, in a place called Indianapolis. And I had no idea what finance really was. And I went to university, and the first time I ever went to New York City for a job interview, and I got the job. So coming out of university, my last probably year and a half, I thought this whole thing in investment banking sounds really interesting, and it was very big. I graduated in university in 2001. And fortunately, I got the job. So that set me off on a track where I would say before that, I just wasn't quite sure what I would do. But being from the Midwest, there's lots of manufacturing and industrial businesses, companies that make things, distribution businesses. And my family kind of had a number of small businesses just aunts, uncles, both my parents. So I kind of just figured I'd end up doing something like that. And then I went off on this whirlwind thing that took me to New York. And sometimes I laugh and say now I'm living in a village an hour outside of London. So I definitely wouldn't have expected that growing up in about a half an hour from cornfields.
Nice. And you mentioned about working in the finance sector, and now actually you're in the contract manufacturing, and you're building these businesses, creating manufacturing jobs, which is very interesting, especially for the UK, because they are known more for the service and the finance sector, and the manufacturing is still a very small part of it, considerable. But to actually envisage to make that transition, is that been something difficult for you, or is that something being as a part of the process?
Well, I think there's a couple points you made there worth addressing. It is the UK does very much feel like a services and financial services in particular, consulting, legal services, marketing type of a country and an economy. We're still, I think, the 8th or 9th biggest manufacturing economy in the world, which is still quite significant. There's probably something to be pointed out that it's probably not as focused on as it should be. But some of the reality is I speak English. So whereas Germany really is the powerhouse manufacturing, economy in the EU and in Europe, it wasn't really an option for me. I don't speak German, French, or Italian, where the other three big manufacturing hubs. And but at the same time, there's the great history of engineering in this country, and where we are in North Kent along the Thames estuary, there's actually quite a big variety of industrial businesses and engineering companies that basically help us grow, whether they're customers, suppliers, or finding people to join the team. It actually works pretty well.
Nice. And so you've been through different job roles through your career, into this current role and stuff, and you've created a few companies. Your holdings own other companies, and it's a growing business. Personally, through all of this change, how do you manage to adapt and keep learning to be relevant for the type of work that you're doing?
I think that question really, you've almost answered it yourself, right? Because it's just keep learning. And I think I have a view of I enjoy it. I still love understanding even what a basic subject in an area I don't understand much about. So we just bought a robotic welding plant. So I get interested in what type of coating is used. How is it used? How does the coating work? How does the welding offline robotic software integrate into a SolidWorks package? I find this stuff all very fascinating. And I make sure to look after my health so my brain stays in decent shape, or at least I try to, so that I just embrace it. And it's something I realized I had to do. I knew when I bought the first business, Contracts Engineering, that I would need to, because I'd spent a lot of time in a very different type of work environment, looking at manufacturing companies, quite a bit different than actually being in one and running it. And as I would say, I kind of understood how to look at a business and, where does the money come from? Where does it go? What kind of customers do we have? Are they the right type of customers? What is a good versus a bad customer? How do we look at our supply chain? All these things I had a good understanding of and a good training in. But as I said, I had no idea what happens at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, or what do you do at 3 o'clock on a Thursday? What was the management team doing to keep that business going? So I knew I had a lot to learn, and I still do. And I literally have monthly targets of my own personal goals of reading enough books, studying subjects, and making sure that I always set aside time to read or to learn, whether it's, say a very practical learning where I'm in the factory, or I'm sitting with the designer, or I'm sitting with the customer learning about their product. I get really excited, and I ask lots of questions, and I try to tell that to the team. I say, guys, keep asking questions. There really isn't a bad question. So just really, guys, just learn as much as you can, and keep asking, because I do it all the time. So for example, I took a sales guy to a prospective customer yesterday, and just spent a lot of time asking them questions to understand their business. What were their needs? Why were they interested in another contract manufacturer? What kind of customers did they have? How could we help them? and I walk out of there with a buzz. I still do. I love it.
That's very fascinating, because I think that's the best way to understand anything is just to ask questions and not feel afraid to be judged about that, because a lot of people don't do that enough, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good skill to have. And because you mentioned about something about even encouraging your team to do this, and you help building teams. One question I really want to ask you is. Do you believe in hiring the right talent or growing the right
Oh, I'll answer. I hope I don't sound too much like a politician and walk around the question. So we've developed our own hiring matrix that we use for our companies, and we plot every new hiree on a X and Y graph. And one axis is capability, and the other axis is attitude. And the way we look at it, and we have a set of questions tied that we ask, and we have a set of criteria to say, is that person capable? And that specific thing. So we kind of know, what does it mean to be capable? Because that's kind of a very specific thing to identify. And then we talk about our core values and our culture, so we can then look at, do they have the right attitude? And what I find is that it's easier to train somebody with a great attitude than to try to convince somebody with the wrong attitude or the wrong values, but who's very capable to change their values. A great example is some companies are a sort of not really a team-driven culture. They're sort of siloed, and engineering stays within engineering and argues with purchasing, and sales are the bad guys who always overpromise. And operations are the guys who come up with reasons why. So you can see everyone's got a kind of a negative response about some other department. There's lots of cultures like that, right or wrong. So we look to identify that. And the people who come from those cultures, it's very hard to change that. So. Whereas we have the culture, we all got to work together, guys. We have one customer at the end, and the customer pays everybody, and the customer tells us whether or not we did a good job. So let's all work together. So I would say I prefer to grow the talent than to hire the talent for that very reason. Sometimes that slows us down in the short term. But I've made very few bad hiring decisions based on someone with the right attitude that couldn't get there. And it has happened. In fact, we had somebody that didn't work out, that had a great attitude, but they couldn't get the technical side right eventually. And so it didn't work out and they had to go. But more often than not, in my real blunder hires were the capable people with the wrong values. They
No, I
a lot more damage on the way out.
Agree with that. I think I believe in the same thing. If you can get somebody with the right attitude and the willingness to learn, you can actually get them to be an asset to the company and actually feel more empowered as well, right?
Yeah, and Nishant, I think where you hit the nail on the head is the willingness to learn. And when we were first hiring on attitude, we didn't put enough emphasis in that. It was now one of our top core values of willingness to learn and problem solving. So we kind of hit it twice. And so that's so important, because a great attitude, but to kind of say, hey, I do what I do and I like to work with everybody, but I don't really want to do more than what I do. That can be a real challenge for us. And I think we made some mistakes hiring people that came across very well, but they didn't want to grow. And we're very much a growth-oriented business. But there's another good value. Some companies, if you're a GDP growth business, you don't want to bring in a whole bunch of people that are excited by growth and new opportunities, because you might say, well, that's not really what we do as a business. So you want to have a different sort of culture around that.
Absolutely. So moving on to the second section of our interview, let's talk about, is there any specific book that you have given most as a gift, or any couple of books that have had most impact on you?
I would say on the first one, there's a book I've given to a few people recently called Bulletproof. And it's by a guy who wants to live to be 180. And he's an old, he's a computer engineer who was very unhealthy in his 20s. And then he spent about 20, 25 years, he likes to call hacking, but really what it kind of delves into is what does it mean to be healthy body, healthy mind. But it takes that great engineer's approach of lots of data, lots of testing, lots of data. And it's a fantastic book, and it's completely changed the way I eat, the way I sleep, the way I exercise, and in some cases, the way I work. So I give that book a lot. And then a book that's influenced me, it's kind of a cheesy one, but when I was probably 17 or 18, my dad gave me this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was this guy that was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to go around to all the wealthy, successful people in America, not just America, but mostly America in the kind of 1920s, and ask them, how were you successful? And, some of these, generally asking people who weren't born successful. And it was just good. It kind of got me thinking about what I could do. And it probably helped me think about, and a lot of credit goes to my dad for this, to think about, well, maybe if I apply myself in university, I could get one of those jobs in New York. A boy from Indiana who doesn't normally go there, who'd never even been to the city before, could do it. And it sort of probably set me off on the path to say, I think I can do this. I just got to keep working really hard.
That's really interesting because, a little bit like that is why I've started this podcast as well, to interview, people such as yourself in industry, and to showcase that, not everybody has a path forged out, but it's the things that you do and the attitude that you have can actually get you into those places. So talking about that, part of growing and learning is also about understanding and accepting failure. Do you have any favorite failures of yours or a failure that has put you en route to a later success?
Yeah, my second job. So I had 2 job offers when I was leaving my first job. And looking back, I would say I chose the wrong one. And I went to a company, well, it was called America Online. And it was 2 or 3 years after it had bought Time Warner. And I went there to join the corporate development team to buy tech companies, basically. So they were going to rebuild the brand and buy a lot of interesting internet companies and online advertising companies. And I thought, this sounds really, really interesting. And there were some fantastic people. I really liked the people I interviewed with. But the culture was acidic, to be candid. There were good reasons for the culture to be acidic, because one company bought the other. This .com crash happened. And a lot of people lost their pensions and lost their jobs at Time Warner, which was a very healthy media company, because they kind of got dragged down by this internet company. And we all know AOL's kind of gone the same way as Alta Vista and those sorts of companies. I mean, it's still around, but it's not used very much. And, I really thought, what have I done? What did I get wrong? And I realized that it was a joke in my first job that there was a lot of this talk of cultures, and the senior bankers would talk about culture. We young guys would all laugh and say, ha, 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 culture, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're all here to work. But then I realized, having left, the place I was at, Bear Stearns, had this really unique kind of special culture that was great. And I actually really enjoyed it. And then I was in a culture that I didn't like, in a job that I should have really liked. And it really opened my eyes and said, wow, this whole culture thing really matters. And it's not just about the people you work with, but it's about the whole organization you're in. And what is it like to work there? And do you like it? Are the people you want to work with? And I found it was incredibly political. And I found it very difficult to be happy in that atmosphere. And I give a lot of credit to some of the folks who've gone on to do some pretty impressive stuff, who lived through the culture. I think just kind of swallowed it and said, I will do something else eventually, but I can manage. And I think I was being a bit of a whiny, mid-20s, thinking, what have I done with my life? And I probably shouldn't have overreacted so much. But it made me go to grad school, which was a good thing. Because I said my route out was going to get an MBA.
Yeah, that's, I think culture is the most understated thing, especially when you're starting out your career, because as graduates, you don't think about that. That's the last thing on your mind, right? You just want to get a job in a company that will pay.
I thought culture.
Yeah. It's,
what is that? Yeah, it's a mistake.
It's also something that I tell anybody that I meet, that if you're looking for a new job, don't just look for the role or the salary, look for the right cultural fit. Because if you get that, then everything else, can be improved.
And it's understanding the organization, because again, I like the people I interviewed with.
Yeah.
I thought, these are really nice people. They're really sharp. They're really smart. They've got some great ideas. I think I could do well. I'll learn a lot. But what I didn't realize is 2 steps removed, there was this horribly negative culture at the senior executive
Yeah.
teams of both companies. It made decision making very difficult and very political.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Uh, do you have any unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love?
I think my wife would say this is kind of absurd. I now put what's called MCT oil in my coffee,
Okay.
which is chain triglycerides.
Uh-huh.
And it's a fatty acid. It's synthesized from coconuts.
Okay.
And what it does is it helps stimulate ketosis. So it's basically burning the right kind of energy in your liver to give energy to your body.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny. The guys in the office laughed. I'll sit there with my coffee and I'll pour in this weird sort of syrupy liquid, stir it around and sip my coffee. No one else will touch it. Yeah, but I love it.
Oh wow, that's something I'll probably definitely try because I love coffee.
Take a look into it.
Mushroom coffee
It's not
flavor.
bad.
So I think definitely we'll give this a shot as well. Is there any learning that you had from school or college that you still take with yourself?
Yeah, I would say particularly my graduate school. So I was fortunate enough to go to Columbia Business School for an MBA, and just had some fantastic professors. And that program had a unique mix. I sound like I'm promoting it, but I don't mean to. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It has a unique mix of academic professors who were doing research and teaching, but then professors who were coming up from New York, from the city, from their jobs and teaching at nights. But really, really switched on people. And I just learned so much. And it's so funny how many times I look back and think, wow, where did I pick that up? Oh, I learned it at Columbia. And it's all the way from just the way I analyze things and just learning how to really dig into basically data. In a sense, finance isn't wildly different than engineering because it's kind of analyzing data, problem solving, looking for solutions, organizing things, and that I enjoyed that. But also at the MBA program, there's a lot of focus on management, understanding people and team, and that's back to where I went there and I said, wow, I went from a great culture to a terrible culture. How? Why? How do I even look for that? Because I had no idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't even really till I left AOL. I was at Columbia, and I took a couple classes on culture and what does it mean, what are great organizations, and I said, oh wow, that's what that was.
Yeah.
I got to stay away from that and understand and make sure if I'm where I'm at, if I can influence a culture, I make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I avoid that sort of stuff because it was just, it was very unhealthy. It wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah. So,
but the Columbia side was great. I mean, it just taught me so much.
Yeah.
And I reflect back on it and say, what a good decision. I mean, taking 2 years out of a career is a long time, but it was good.
So let's talk about culture as well. And you've been in the industry long enough across, right? So, is there a stereotype or a bad advice you see, being given in the industry?
Yeah, I would say there's 2. I mean, I think I hope. Please don't stop this now. But I think bankers are overly bashed. I think a few bad apples have really kind of soiled the industry, and there's a lot of good that comes from that industry. There's a lot of clever ideas and people in private equity firms who focus on building great businesses and then selling them on. So I actually have had a lot of good experience there. And I worked at Bear Stearns, the first company that fell in the financial crisis. And I was a junior guy, but we were so far removed from the mortgage-backed security stuff that was going on, yet the whole bank got sullied. And it was a real shame because there were some really talented people there who were just focusing on their clients, and I worked in mergers and acquisitions and nothing to do with that. So I would say that was the stereotype that still hung. And then unfortunately, there's this real stereotype in this country that we don't make anything.
Yeah.
And I find myself trying to kind of beat the drum to say, oh, but we do, but we're really good. We're the 8th or 9th biggest in the world. We've got these fantastic companies and there's all these great opportunities. And I think also the government kind of believes we don't make anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's a stereotype, unfortunately, that's somewhat perpetuated by the British government and not really supporting industry in the way I think it should. Yeah.
No, I agree. It's that's definitely, manufacturing is understated. But at the moment, I think one of the coolest places to actually work in as well. Obviously you're doing so many things. You're working with new companies, trying to change the culture. Uh, do you get overwhelmed or unfocused at any point? And if you do, what do you do to actually get your focus back in?
Yeah, it does happen. So there's two things. There's a mental thing and a physical thing I do, and it happens regularly. I mean, I find in the world today, it's so easy to get distracted and so hard to stay focused unless you really pay attention, because there's always something buzzing, clicking, going on, dinging on your phone. So I have a 3 times a week I listen to what my long-term goals are. I've actually recorded myself and I listen to it. I have monthly goals to say, have I done this month? I don't go over the top, just to kind of say, am I doing what I want to do?
Yeah.
And then also, I guess there's 3 things within there. During my weekly management meeting with the teams, we sit down and go through what is our top priority this week and what is our big we call it quarterly rock. So what's the thing over the next 3 months we really want to get done, so we don't get too distracted by the noise. And the other thing I do, and this back to this bulletproof book that's helped me, is I exercise a lot. So I got home today, I had a stressful day, felt very unfocused. I was getting pulled a lot to different things. So I went for a 10K run, obstacle course thing. And it felt great.
Yeah.
I just burned off all the stress. And I find exercise is just, I think almost nothing beats it for me when it comes to, I just got to get the heck out of the office and run.
Yeah, I don't manage to get any 10K runs, but I do manage to do like a HIIT session by Body Coach.
Oh, HIIT's brilliant. Yeah.
And I've had, especially during the COVID situation, it's helped me quite a lot as well, just to get that focus back in.
No, HIIT's great. I mean, you're in the middle of a HIIT session, you can't think of anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Go. That's good.
Yeah. So knowing what you know today, if you had the opportunity to, instruct your younger self about something, what would that be?
I would say be more patient.
Mm-hmm.
I think I spent way too long. All of my 20s was about, I'm doing this, then do that. When am I going to do that? What's my next step? Not enough time. I think I was just too impatient. Mm-hmm. Wanting change quickly, wanting to know, am I getting promoted this year? I've done a great job. What do I get in return? Not quite so transactional, but I guess I just felt there's this constant push to keep going. And the reality is, I now appreciate that. I want to live to be over 100, and I'll probably be working till I'm 80 or 90.
Yeah,
touch wood. And I think that I keep trying to put that in perspective. And I've got 2 great young kids. My wife and I have 2 kids that are 9 and 7. And I keep thinking I've got such a long run of family holidays with them. So I've got to just get this perspective that it doesn't have to happen this week or this month. I got to keep the momentum, but just don't overly pressurize myself.
Yeah, it's a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah, exactly. Really, it's a longer marathon than it ever was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in industry today, especially during the COVID situation, we're seeing, people graduating, students graduating now in this situation, and people, getting laid off, and they require now to approach the industry and get jobs, probably new domains and stuff. In your specific industry and your sector, is there any advice you would like to give, firstly, the graduates starting out at the moment? And then to the professionals looking to pivot?
Yeah, a graduate one, it's a very, very easy one. Say yes to everything they ask you to do, mm-hmm. and do a good job. I find, and this is, it's probably another little rant of mine. I don't think it's this generation is hugely different, but I come across many young people who join the companies who want to excel and progress rapidly and want to know, what do I need to do to get promoted, but they don't do the work.
Yeah.
And nothing, Nishant, beats just hard work constantly. Mm-hmm. Extra hours. If you want to go that way, I mean, if you really want to go forward, just say yes. Can you pick up this project? Yes. Do not say that's not in my job description, unless you want to just plod along. So I'd say that's really important. And I would say for a professional, it's the same thing. You could probably delegate a bit more. when you're a bit further along in your career, and maybe the learnings are probably a little bit less technical and more about people and understanding the organization, or maybe it was technical and then you got to understand the finance because you have more P&L responsibility, or you're a senior engineer and it's more about managing the junior engineers and the mid-level engineers to get through the project on time. Take the opportunities to learn. And again, taking the opportunity to learn means you're working hard. That working hard might be taking some night courses to understand project management, maybe even just watching YouTube courses or something on Coursera. But nothing beats working really hard and doing a good job. And I've literally never met somebody who had that philosophy who feel like they've been shortchanged.
Yeah. No, I think that's
I would say just
great advice.
keep doing that.
I'm sure the listeners would absolutely be really useful to them as well.
So if I can add to that,
yeah.
Everyone will have in their career a boss maybe that doesn't appreciate them enough, or a company where that role just isn't quite there, but it's a great company, but that role you need maybe isn't there. But, that's back to where be a bit patient, talk to people, something will open up. And don't feel that if you've had a year that you feel like if I progressed enough this year that somehow your career's over. Keep going, and just be patient. Don't say I've worked really hard for 6 months. Where's my this? And I do feel that's happening a lot more than it used to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had to get rid of a few young people. Some who were just not willing to work very hard.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of scratching our heads, great attitude, but just didn't want to work, messed around a lot. And we just kind of said, look, I'm sorry, but this isn't the company for you. And I think that if someone would have sat down and told them that, I think maybe it would have helped them.
Yeah. So, going to our final question, we've talked about what your journey has been like, and some of your experiences. Where would you want to get to from here?
Yeah, our goal, and we've got ambitious ones with Barratt Group. We want to continue acquiring more businesses that fit nicely within the group. A mix of manufacturing companies to expand our footprint, our capabilities, but and then product businesses that are great products that need a good home, that want to be looked after, nurtured and grown. Pretty much a lot in the commercial construction infrastructure space. So we see a lot of potential there. And we're going to keep going for it.
Nice. Thanks, Troy. I think it's been really useful to have you on here and you just listen to all your experiences and advice as well. I've learned quite a lot just through this conversation. I hope you found this discussion insightful as well. I'm sure the listeners are definitely going to find it very insightful. Any last words before we end?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. This is a great show, and it's a great launching pad into some really good discussions, and I appreciate you giving me the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Troy.
Hey listeners, hope you enjoyed the episode. Would love to hear your feedback in the comments section, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe.